border security, yes, but we don't need it to wall off wildlife. Why would we wall off the river?
Your speech was wonderful today. Could you tell Austinites what's your one personal reason for protecting Big Bend?
It's a unique treasure that cannot be replaced, and running a wall through there from Trump will create many problems for wildlife and for the whole character of the Grande and Big Bend.
I'm Rajasi Agarwal, and I'm here today at the Texas Capitol. Come with me to talk to a congressman, wildlife experts, and 1,000 Austinites on why they firmly believe we should save Big Bend National Park, where DHS is proposing building 150 miles of border wall. So, sir, what brings you out here today?
Well, I'm here to join with all these other fine folks in protesting plans to put a big border wall in the middle of Big Bend National Park and State Park.
Why is that so important to you?
Well, Big Bend is a national treasure and it's a Texas treasure. It's our responsibility to steward it. There are many ways of providing border security. A big wall is only one of many, and it's inappropriate for that particular place.
Do you think the immigration concerns outweigh the environmental impact at all?
Not at all, and anyone who's actually been in the area can see why it's not a major area for border cross, as it's too rugged and very difficult to get to. Again, it's the wrong tool for the job, and the area is too pristine and it really needs to be left.
And if there's one message you wish lawmakers in Austin or D.C. could hear, what would it be?
Keep Texas, Texas, and to leave our pristine natural areas alone.
Whisper his mouth.
So tell me about the oar and the canoe. Why is that here?
So the paddle and the canoe, it's because one of the major ways to traverse the big region was by canoe. It's a classic way that most people nowadays are able to see the Big Bend, the whole Rio Grande, and everything that it makes that area. Steep canyons, the Native American archaeological sites, just the open, beautiful desert. Best way to see it is with the canoe. And Mike Ryan, who is the former river ranger for the Big Bend National Park, actually brought this canoe so that other folks could see the main way that we use it and kind of spread the message.
And then on top of that, we have to think about how we share this region with so much wildlife. A lot of people think of the desert as being absent of life, but it's actually quite the opposite. So you think about the black bear. They cross between Mexico and Texas all the time. But up a wall, they can no longer do that. They can no longer go to mate in Mexico or come back and forth. And our animals don't have access to the Rio Grande, which is their primary source of water.
So what are you doing here today at Save Big Bend?
I'm a resident, which means I live in the Big Bend sector of the border, which is 517 miles, right next to Big Bend Ranch State Park and Big Bend National Park. So I am here to oppose a border wall or any kind of wire or damaging structure or system being put in place along that Big Bend border sector.
Why do you think that border wall would negatively affect you or people in your community?
That is such a big answer. There are so many ways that it would negatively impact us. So first and foremost, a physical border wall would cut off our access to the Rio Grande. Any Texan or anybody coming to visit our national parks or state parks would be cut off from the river, which would impact our local tourism. We would essentially have no, river trips. All of our outfitters would be put out of business. But there's also the impact that would have to our landscape. We're looking at massive canyon walls, powerful, barren, challenging landscapes. Putting a border wall through that kind of landscape would irreparably damage the land. It would never recover. There's the human aspect, the economic aspect, there's the damage to the landscape and the damage to wildlife. And that's just the beginning.
So you talked basically about three things: the human side of it, the economy, and the environment.
Right.
But the government clearly thinks there's an illegal immigration problem there. How do you respond to those concerns?
But when we really look at the numbers, this is a sector, it's 517 miles, and it's a huge percentage of our border, and yet we see very, very few apprehensions, illegal crossings in this area. 5 sheriffs in the area who are conservative all got together to oppose a border wall through this region, saying it's simply not necessary. We're relying more on technology. Our Border Patrol agents already do a good job in this area, and it's not a great place to cross. It's not a practical place to do so anyways. 2024, I believe, For 2025 from 2024, I'm not exactly sure, saw a 74% decrease in apprehensions. It's being essentially fabricated. It really isn't a crisis. Shouldn't be treated like the rest of the border in Texas because it's not similar to the rest of the border in Texas. Actually, no, the problem doesn't exist. They know this state, they know their constituents, and they know that on both sides of the political spectrum, everybody is in agreement about this. These are our Texas public lands. This is, farmers that have had this land for generations, right? These are Texans. This is our land. This is what we want our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren to be able to enjoy. I would ask them to stick up for Texans, stick up for future kids, future grandchildren, so that we have access to the Rio Grande, so that they can have those river trips that have shaped so many of us, right? So that generations of black bear and migratory species have the chance to thrive and prosper. I would ask them to protect Texas.
So just for the viewers, could you explain your sign?
Wall bad, river good.
Why do you think the wall is bad?
A lot of evidence that walls are really bad for wildlife, especially larger mammals that are trying to cross. They don't respect political boundaries and stuff that maybe has part of its home range in Mexico is going to be cut off. There's no need for it in the region either. It's such a remote region. There's very few crossings. The bright lights themselves can disrupt bird migrations. They can cause all kinds of problems. Ruin one of the best dark sky areas left in the country. It's like number 2. There could be some balance, but I think wall is not the solution.
All right. Hello, so for our viewers who don't know what Save Big Bend is, why are you all here today?
We are here from Texas, right outside of Big Bend National Park, where they are attempting to build a wall, still slotted to build a barrier through the Big Bend sector of the border. And this would cut off all of our critters from the ecosystem, tank our economy. 1 in 4 jobs are associated with the river. The over $50 million pumped into the Big Bend area through tourism would be significantly affected.
We live and work in the area. We work as guides down there. We have about 650 species of birds. 450 of those species travel through the Big Bend. It's a huge hub for migratory species. If you were to put up a physical barrier, even if you were to put up something like a smart wall, which is also being proposed, you're talking about introducing floodlights and things like that are going to affect migratory patterns. And we're talking about species that travel all across the globe. And this is going to have impacts on environments all over. So it's not a problem that is just specifically right to Texas. We're also just trying to educate people on the fact that we really don't need it here. People all across this political spectrum do not agree with putting a wall in the area. From a fiscal standpoint, we've kind of crunched the numbers on it. It's going to be about $30 million per mile of wall, plus $3 million a year to maintain that wall. It would actually be cheaper to put a Border Patrol agent for every single river mile, pay them for 50 years, $90K a year, and it would still be cheaper than building this wall. So from an economic standpoint, it doesn't make sense. From an environmental standpoint, it doesn't make sense. And as Sage said, a lot of the communities in that area completely rely upon the river and the tourism that is in the Big Bend area. Realistically speaking, if you kind of shut down the river, there's not a whole lot of reason for people to come out and visit the area. People know it just doesn't make sense on any of it, and that this is not just like a one-sided issue. This is not Republicans, this is not Democrats. This is something that's going to affect everybody. If we can save the Big Bend, we can save other parks and other protected areas across the country.
They've waived over 28 federal regulations.
Texans of every political stripe really feel a deep love for the land and a deep love for Texas. And when we're talking about our natural resources, our natural our parks, our land, our water, our rivers, we get, it's like I said, it's so divisive, we get unified really quick.
And if you think our unity, our love for the land, and our natural resources are so strong, then why does the government still prioritize illegal immigration and border issues?
It's a good question. We really need to break one-party rule, because one-party rule is producing this really radical view that is willing to destroy our natural beauty over a political symbol. No, it's not effective, efficient, fair, and it certainly isn't minimally intrusive.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by one-party rule?
The one-party rule is the government that is spending $64.5 billion on a wall that a bipartisan belief in Texas don't want. We don't want this wall in a bipartisan fashion, and yet one party rule is insisting on a $64.5 billion political symbol.
You say 64.5 billion. Wow. And you also talked about not selling our land. Who's the buyer here and who is the seller?
So this is proposals to use eminent domain. The government seized eminent domain to purchase private property to put the wall in. The estimate is that would cost about $20 million per mile for the wall. At $20 million per mile plus $500,000 per mile. So currently what we're looking at is $15 billion of federal money, $3 billion of state money, and an additional $42 billion has been allocated. That is a lot of money that we could use on hospitals, we could use it on schools, we could use it to build the water infrastructure to secure our water into the future. But instead, again, I think that the best thing for us to do is break one-party rule. One-party rule produces radical, outrageous behaviors like this, and that needs to stop. One-party rule was not envisioned by our founding fathers. One-party rule is absolutely not a foundational aspect of our democracy. It's a perversion of it.
Could you tell Austinites what's your one personal reason for protecting Big Bend?
It's a unique treasure that cannot be replaced, and running a wall through there from Trump will create many problems for wildlife and for the whole character of the Big Bend. So I just want to see it stop once and for all. Unfortunately, our Republican colleagues are usually so afraid of a mean tweet from Trump that they refuse to speak. So today we've had people that are not Republican elected officials who have come forward who are ardent Republicans, and that's great. We need some Republican elected officials that take their name on the line and help us stop this.
And why do you think everyone is so scared from a mean tweet from Trump?
You know, it's really hard to understand, but from Harvard University to lawyers in the other end of the country, people and businesses and journalists have been intimidated by him. And this is an opportunity to stand up for something that's right, that can bring people of different viewpoints together, and I hope we can do that.
And what message do you have for your constituents so they're not so intimidated?
We have 2 U.S. senators. One of them's up for election this year. Our elected officials all need to be held accountable. They should appeal to them and ask them to make public statements in support of stopping any wall or other interference with the Rio Grande. But for my constituents overall, there's never been a time in my political life that our democracy has been more in peril. And now is the time to be engaged. Trump will do everything he can to manipulate.
Can we trust you to stand up to Trump? What can you do for us when talking to Trump?
Well, you can trust me to stand up as I have through the years. This is my last year in Congress. I'm going to put in every bit of effort I can to try to stop this from happening.
So what would you say to these people, to DHS, to Trump?
I would say that this is a non-issue. The Big Bend sector of the border is about 25% of the mileage on the southern border, and it actually only accounts for 1.2%. We do not see the flooding numbers of El Paso. We have cliffs and huge cactus, and we have 300 miles of pretty much open desert protecting us already.
This land is your land, this land is my land.
Pump it up.